So before we get into the specific hadith, the general gist of chapter number 85, Bab Fadl al-Medina. Yani, one of the proofs and evidences for the virtues of Medina. Medina as a city, not the masjid, not this place in the masjid, the Rawda, etc. The city itself has many virtues. And from that which proves these virtues is 1, 2, 3, 4, ... From the Fadail of Medina is that it's a sacred city, a sanctuary, in which there are certain acts, normal acts that would normally be lawful are unlawful, they're prohibited, they're off limits in that area. Like fasting in the month of Ramadan. The Muslim is to avoid the things which are normally lawful to him. Recommended. Eating, drinking from Allah's rizq. Going to your tilth, your wife or wives. That's recommended. Allah commands you to do that. But not while you're fasting, because those things, Ramadan is sacred. The haram stuff you're supposed to be staying away from. Shawwal, Shaban, Dhul-Hijjah, Dhul-Qa'dah, period. And of course a heightened sense of muraqabah, awareness, of watchfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? So from the things that prove that Medina is virtuous, is that certain things which would normally be okay are not okay inside of period. He says, وَدْوَاءَ النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فِيهَا بِالْبَرَكَةِ, and how the Prophet ﷺ invoked Allah for Allah's barakah to be placed on Medina. And this chapter shows us is that there are things in which Mecca and Medina are equal in. Equal. And there are other matters, other virtues in which Mecca is superior. And there are other matters and virtues in which Medina is superior. 3 different slots. Equal, Mecca greater, Medina greater. I'm going to understand that from several aspects. Of course, Mecca, the Masjid al-Haram, the Kaaba, the Qibla, Ibrahim, etc. Hajj, etc. Right? But Medina has certain virtues in which it reaches equality with Mecca. They're both sacred. And then there are certain things which Medina is superior, which the Prophet said. That's where he lived, that's where he died, that's where his masjid is. That became the first Darul Islam. Etc. Let alone how the Prophet ﷺ made double dua compared to Ibrahim's dua for Mecca. So Ibrahim asked Allah Azza wa Jalla to make that a better than Amina, a safe city. Right? And several ayats. وَرَزُقَ, and give its people from the thamarat, fruits. Allow them to eat and to drink, to be healthy, to be comfortable. He made dua for Mecca and his people. And at one point in time, Mecca was barren, as it states, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, he made dua more, twice, double, for the barakah of Medina with regards to their measures, their mud and their salt, their grain, their food stuff, etc. So that's what's meant by that chapter. As far as the impermissibility of hunting, the impermissibility of cutting down, chopping down its trees and bushes, we explained that already. So that's the general gist of the chapter heading. And of course, the chapter heading is preparing you to understand the hadiths and to walk away with the main lessons and the main rulings from the hadiths. As we explained countless times. So hadith 863, it says, Inna Ibrahima harama Makkah. Ibrahim made Mecca haram, and I have done the same. And we've explained before how the Prophet ﷺ followed the way of Ibrahim, and how he named his son Ibrahim. Sammaytuhu bismi abi. I gave him the name of my forefather, Ibrahim. And the respect and the veneration and the love that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had for Ibrahim ﷺ, following in his footsteps. Inshallah ta'ala. Moving forward, what is a mud and what is a sa'? most people, they only understand these terms, or they only talk about these terms in the month of Ramadan when it comes to zakat al-fitr and how it should be a saw of grain, a saw of raisins, a saw of cottage cheese, a saw of barley, etc. Now, dates. And a saw is basically 4 muds. And the mud is a full hand scoop with medium-sized hands. Not extremely long, big hands, not extremely small, petite hands, but middle-sized hands, average-sized hands. So a saw will basically equal how many hands? 6, 4 of these.
8.
2 of mine.
16. Now, or, you guys' math is off. This is one. How much is a saw? Is how many muds? 4. A mud is 2 hands. So there are 2 times
8.
طيب, inshallah. Move forward. Hadith 864 is a very, very interesting hadith. And it's a hadith of Anas, in which speaks on how the Prophet ﷺ asked for someone to serve him, to look after him. Now, the importance of serving righteous, virtuous people. And how it isn't just made to serve, but it's meant to train. The page becomes a squire becomes a knight. He gets all of his education for free. But in actuality, it's not free. Let alone the page and the squire, they have to learn humility. They have to learn how to break their ego. Before you can be a knight in shining armor, before you can ride your horse and have your shield and your sword and your battle axe, you have to break your ego. And you have to know what it feels to serve. Just think about the wisdom behind that. Whereas a person starts off being a knight, he doesn't know hardship, he doesn't know sacrifice. He thinks he's above everyone else. So there's wisdom in a young man serving someone older or more virtuous than him. And the wisdom behind it and the purpose behind it isn't just for convenience and ease for you to serve me and to do me favors and to be my flunky, go to the store, do this, do that. It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. So the Messenger of Allah, والسلام, some of the Sahaba, as he said to Abu Talha, he said, Iltamis, he says, go bring me a young man to serve me. And he said, Ghulam, a young man that will be a sponge. This hadith shows us and teaches us and proves is that when you wish to take on a disciple, a learner, a student, then they should be young, primarily. And that's for obvious reasons. They should have an empty cup, and you should be the one to teach them, to show them, to mentor them, and to guide them, and to nurture them. Versus someone who's a bit older, and which is very, very difficult to get out of those bad habits, if not impossible. Your memory, when you're older, isn't as sharp. You have more responsibilities and duties when you're older, and your ego is bigger. You can't talk to me like that. I'm a grown man. What do you think this is? There are many wisdoms behind having someone that's younger, and that's taken from this what? From this hadith. It says, Min ghilmanikum. Then it says here, فخرج أبو طلحة يردفني وراءه فكنت أخدم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل ما نزل. And Anas, he says here that I used to serve the Prophet whenever he got off of his horse, his water, whatever his horse needed to eat, drink, his armor, etc., etc., etc. Now, hadith is very interesting, and I'm sure we've all heard this hadith before. Khutbahs have been done on this hadith, but I don't think that people know about this part of the hadith. I don't think so, and I could be wrong. The hadith states, I used to hear him saying very often, all the time, the Prophet ﷺ would seek Allah's refuge from those 8 cancerous diseases. Those 8 cancerous illnesses, which are big in 2022. The hadith states, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Oh Allah, I seek refuge with you from worries and sadness. How many people have chronic anxiety, chronic depression, in and out of depression, in and out of depression. People drink, people smoke, people take pills, people have to watch this, listen to this, be with this person dressed like that, just to be calm and at ease, just to put their anxiety at rest, just to take their minds off of the past, just to take their minds off of the fearful future. So the first step of curing anxiety is in therapy, is in a medicine or a pill, or this type of clinical study. The first step is making dua. Allah protect me from the horrors of the past, what happened to me, what was meant to be. And we've explained this many times before. The average person, let alone the average Muslim, they can't overcome the past. We say, Qadr Allah, ma sha'a fa'ala. We say that, but do we honestly submit and believe it was meant to be? It's over, it's done. No matter what I did, whose fault? Khalas. It's meant to be. What wisdom, how smart is it for me to live every day in suffering and sadness over something that was out of my control from the beginning? Something that was meant to happen before I was even made. Doesn't make any sense. So the average person is haunted by the past, regrets, traumatic experiences. This person oppressed me, this person wronged me, this person did this to me, did that to me. They just can't accept the past. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he instructed us to seek Allah's refuge min al-hammi wal-hazan, both directions. Ham is for the future, hazan is for the past. Anxiety about what has not yet come, and sadness about what has already what? Come. Then the hadith states, wal-ajzi wal-kasal. Laziness, helplessness, ajz, a person being weak, politically, financially, spiritually, physically, militarily, economically, weak. I can't do it by myself. We can't do it by ourselves. We can't stand on our own. We need another person to show us, to help us. We can't get it together. We can't become organized. We can't get it right. Seek Allah's refuge from helplessness, being helpless, and wallowing in helplessness, and kasal, lethargy, being lazy. Our youth today, right? Our teenagers. They have many problems, they have many issues, just like we as parents have many problems and issues. But one of the biggest and greatest and most dangerous things for our youth is the culture of laziness. And how we allow it, we condone it, and we support it. It's all right to do nothing all day. It's all right. Your phone, your tablet, you have your food, and we feel bad as parents. We give them everything they want, everything that they need. Right? And the child may say, why should I work when you're going to give me everything? That don't make any sense. Why do you want me to get up and do something when I know you're going to feed me? I know you're going to buy me the sneakers. I know that in the summertime, the air conditioner is going to be cold. In the wintertime, the heat is going to be nice, warm, and toasty. I know that you're going to supply and provide a warm, comfy, cozy bed for me to lay down all day and do nothing. You brought my phone. You pay for my data. So don't tell me not to be lazy. You're a hypocrite. If you don't want me to be lazy, why do you pamper me? Just look at the psyche of a teenager now. Whose fault that the children are lazy? Our fault or their fault? In reality. Of course they're responsible. Of course they have brains, inshallah. Of course they're supposed to know the right thing if you taught them the right thing and lead by example. But in reality, who's really responsible? Right? And many of our youth, unfortunately, they think and they feel that it's okay to do nothing all day. Deen and or dunya. I'm not that interested in studying the Quran, Arabic, but I'm working on this degree. I learned this trade. I'm playing sports. Go outside and no, in my house, on my phone, all day, every day. And they think that that's all right. What awaits for our youth? What rude awakening when they go out to the real world? If our children go out to the real world. That's another sad reality. Your mother, your father may allow you to stay home when you're 18, 19, 20. I don't know about other cultures, other societies, other races, but I know in America, it's looked down upon. And a man who's a grown man, 20 years old, living home with his moms. Is this not the case? That's looked down upon. That's not okay. Other cultures, don't leave your mother's house, stay home. But American culture is not right. You're 20, 25, where do you live? I live with my mom in the basement or the attic. I'm in my same home. What do you mean? You have a job, you have a house, you have an apartment, you're married, you're working, you're going overseas, nothing. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Laziness. And also from the issues pertaining to laziness is the mountains that stand in front of us. All of the deeds that we have to do, all of the work that we have to do, all of the procrastination, how the work is now piled up. And we just lose hope and we give up. And that supports our laziness. And that's not from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith then states, وَالْبُخْلِ وَالْجُبْنِ. It says, and from cowardice and miserliness. A person being a miser, bakhil, stingy. You have money, you don't want to spend it. You have money, you don't want to buy your own self something that's a disease, that's an illness. You see that the Muslims are in need, but you don't want to give. Your family is in need, you hoard the money. Something's wrong. And jubn, being a coward. La ilaha illallah. And one of the greatest types of cowardice is being afraid of your own self. Not having the courage to make jihad with nafs. Not having the guts to look yourself in the mirror. To embrace and accept your ugly demons and fight them. Seek Allah's help in fighting them. But you give up, you submit, you quit. And you allow them to win and conquer you. That's cowardice. Let alone external cowardice, being afraid of men. Something that I just can't understand, especially when it comes to dawah. You know the truth, but you're scared to say it because Brother Fulan is going to dislike you. Or Sheikh Fulan is going to talk about you. Or these people, they won't accept you anymore. Or they won't invite you in the masjid anymore. Or this person, your student, he'll stop being your student. Can't. Well, I don't understand it. How can you just be scared, trembling of another human being whose blood is blue in his veins just like it's in yours? Something's wrong. It's an illness. It's a disease. Being scared of other people. Being scared of other than Allah. May Allah protect us all. The hadith then states, وَضَلَعِ الدَّيْنِ وَغَلَبَةِ الرِّجَالِ. From being heavily in debt and from being overpowered by other persons. And it says here unjustly. ضَلَعِ الدَّيْنِ. Are we free? Do we really have freedom in the United States? Is it really the home of the brave and the land of the free? Are you free? You have so much debt. Your car, your house, your phone, your internet, your gas, your electric, your food, your shoes. Debt, 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 debt. A chain and a ball. Let alone people who have severe debt from gambling, from drug abuse, alcoholism, being a spendthrift, abusing credit cards, so on and so forth. Right? And just stop and think about all of the things that pertain to debt in 2022. If you have bad credit, what can you do in this world? Always left. What can you do with bad credit?
Can't get it.
When you go to get a halal mortgage, what's the first thing they ask for? Something's off, right? If it's supposed to be lavish, why are they asking you about what? Food for thought, huh? You have a lot. Something's off. This is supposed to be the halal way. We need to know what your relationship with riba is, good or bad. Huh? May Allah help us all. And the different rulings pertaining to debt. A person receiving zakat. And in most cases, people fall into debt through mismanaging their money. There are victims. There are people who actually have needs, but most cases it comes from mismanaging money, mishandling money. So the Prophet sought Allah's refuge from that, and this shows us the importance of economics in Islam. Money is important in the deen, right? Not like those who totally scorn wealth and warn from wealth. Last but not least, it says, وَغَلَبَةِ الرِّجَالِ, and being conquered, being overpowered by men. Your lands being occupied. How many Muslim lands were colonized? How did the great, divergence, how did it happen? How did the majority, not all, but most Muslim countries, how did they just fall in behind like that? in which they needed the Western kuffar Christian countries to bring them into modernity. And you cannot become advanced until you become secular in their mindsets. The more deen you have, more culture, tradition, the more backwards your country will be. And the more backwards your country is, the more control and power the colonial powers have over your country. And it's rich, endless, countless resources that they need for their modernized, mechanized world. Scary. Being conquered by men, being taken over by men, being at the mercy of men. The Prophet ﷺ, he asked Allah to protect him from that. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ, he made this dua to teach us and to show us. So we know about this dua, and it's something that you should make on a daily basis. But not many of us know that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to constantly what? Always say this. So if the Prophet said that over 1400 years ago, and he was the Prophet of Islam, what do you think about me and you? In New York City in 2022. Death, cowardice, laziness, miserliness, all of these illnesses and sicknesses and diseases. We have a full explanation of this dua from Ibn Qayyim and others, and perhaps we'll do another one. Very, very interesting connection between these points. Well, that's not the main discussion of the hadith tonight. What's important is the highlighting point from hadith 864 is when the Messenger of Allah saw Uhud, and he said, this is a mountain that loves us and we love it. And then he mentioned how Medina, he invoked Allah's blessings. He asked Allah for his blessings for Medina, with regards to their measurements, with regards to their mud and their salah. And this hadith shows us having a walima. This hadith shows us something from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ's treatment of his women folk, Safiya radiallahu ta'ala anha, and how a mountain, by Allah Azza wa Jall's power and omnipotence, can have feelings and emotions. And there are many examples of inanimate objects having these feelings and emotions, and talking and speaking and fearing and falling into problems. Right? And we all know this from the unseen that we believe in. And we don't have no philosophical, rhetorical, false, fake, futile interpretation. Even if this university or this scholar or these people say it. Right? Wallahu ta'ala. Hadith 865 is Anas radiallahu anhu. He was asked, did the Messenger of Allah make Medina haram? And he responded in the affirmative, right? And it says, "Man ahdatha fiha hadathan." Whoever makes something up, whether it's a bid'ah or open public sin in Medina, and hearsay, munkar, they are cursed. They're cursed by Allah, they're cursed by the angels, and they're cursed by all of the people. And this proves that Medina is what? Sacred, it's a sanctuary. And that sins are increased in Medina. Wallahu a'lam. Move forward. Hadith 867. The hadith clearly states, their faith. It says, Allah bestowed in Medina twice the blessings you have bestowed in Mecca. Proving that Medina has some superiority over Mecca. It says twice, double. Hadith 868. Ali was doing the khutbah with a what? A sword. Right? Why do you have a sword on the minbar? That's the strangest, weirdest thing I've ever seen. What are you calling to? Are you going to chop somebody's head off? Are you going to kill the infidels while you do the khutbah? Nah, there's some precedent, what? To it. Wallahu ta'ala. He said, when he would address the people while he was standing on a brick pulpit and carrying a sword, from which was hanging a scroll. So Ali radiallahu anhu has something wrapped up. And some narrations state that the scroll was either hanging or inside of the scabbard or the sheath of the sword. And this hadith shows and proves is that there were things from the Sunnah that were written down before 200 years after the Prophet's death. And those who say that the Sunnah, the hadiths were not written down until 200 years, they don't know what they're talking about. These things are not found in the Quran. They are legal injunctions, mandates that were what? Written down. Sahifa. And there are many other suhuf that the Sahaba had. And we've explained that in detail in our series on Tadween al-Sunnah. You can go back to that. Moving forward. Asnan al-Ibn, right? Blood money, the diya, etc. Medina being sacred, Medina being a sanctuary, and how the Muslims are equal with regards to asylum, right? And last but not least, Hadith 869, with regards to not chasing the game, not hunting the game in Medina. Wallahu. Before we stop tonight, we'll take some fawaid from Nawawi. As far as Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam declaring or asking Allah to make Mecca sacred or making Mecca sacred, Nawawi states, هذا دليل لمن يقول أن تحريم مكة إنما هو كان في زمن إبراهيم صلى الله عليه وسلم، والصحيح أنه كان يوم خلق الله السماوات والأرض، وقد سبقت المسألة مستوفاة قريبا. He says here, this hadith proves is that Mecca became sacred upon the tongue of Ibrahim. It's a dalil for those who hold that view. What we've already explained is that Mecca was sacred the day in which Allah created the heavens and earth. In previous chapters. Noah then states what's meant by Ibrahim making Mecca haram. Moving forward, he says, هذه الأحاديث حجة ظاهرة للشافعي ومالك وموافقهما في تحريم صيد المدينة وشجرها، وأباها أبو حنيفة ذلك واحتج له بحديث إلى آخره. He says this hadith proves the validity of those who say that it is unlawful to hunt the game in Medina. That's the view of Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and other scholars. As far as Abu Hanifa, then he took the opposite view. He said that a person can hunt game in Medina. And he used as a proof another hadith, people who falsely accuse Abu Hanifa of disregarding the Sunnah, not loving the Sunnah, having no Sunnah, no hadith. That's not correct. Right? Be mindful of that. People know a lot about it. They use the Hanafis as pin cushions and dartboards. It's a fact. They just beat up and abuse the Hanafis unjustly. Are there issues? Is there criticisms? This, that, etc.? No doubt about that. Like any other method. But there are oftentimes, and I'm going to say it, and I'm not a Hanafi, nor am I from a land in which is predominantly Hanafi. Like most people who defend Abu Hanifa and go extreme in Abu Hanifa, let's say the facts now. It's off. You find most people, when they talk like that, they come from a what? A Hanafi land. And that obviously shows what? Some connection. So I'm not a Hanafi, walhamdulillah. I'm not from a land in which is predominantly Hanafi, walhamdulillah. But the truth is the truth. And my humble studies have led me to believe is that there is a lot of inaccuracy and false attacks that were levied against Abu Hanifa and the Hanafis. That's a fact. And we can see here. So a person comes along and he says, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah said that you can hunt the game in Medina. Khalif Sunnah. Taraf Sunnah. Right? Never the Sunnah. He did away with the Sunnah. And no one clearly states that Imam Abu Hanifa to hold that view used the what? Hadith. Just like Malik, Shafi, and Ahmed and others, they use different hadiths for and against, etc. So be mindful of what you say. Alright? Moving forward. Is the usage of this hadith correct or incorrect? That's a different one. Different story. What's important is that he's using what? Something. Here. Other issues, other times, we're talking about right now, right here. Moving forward. He says, وَاحْتَجَّ لَهُ بِحَدِيث يَا أَبَا عُمَيْرٍ مَا فَعَلَ النُّبَيْرِ وَأَجَابَ أَصْحَابُنَا بِجَوَابَيْنِ أَحَدِهِمَا أَنَّهُ يُحْتَمَلُ أَنَّ حَدِيث النُّقَيْرِ كَانَ قَبْلَ تَحْرِيمِ الْمَدِينَةِ والثاني يحتمل أنه صاده من الحل لا من حرم المدينة وهذا الجواب إلى آخره. Moving forward. We don't need to get into that discussion right now. خير إن شاء الله تعالى. He talks about the borders from this mountain to that mountain. In other words, not all of Medina is sanctuary, but it has hudud, right? And when I was in Islamic University in Medina, some of the brothers told me, and obviously you can actually see it, the signs, is that a part of the actual campus is outside of the Haram area. Right? Allah Ta'ala. And inshallah. No way he explains the virtue of Medina, those who are patient upon some of the hardships and difficulties of the city, how the Prophet ﷺ will intercede for them on the Day of Judgment. Now, moving forward. حتى إذا بدا له أحد قال هذا جبل يحبنا ونحبه الصحيح المختار أن معناه أن أحدا يحبنا حقيقة جعل الله تعالى فيه تمييزا يحب به كما قال سبحانه. He says the correct understanding is that it's literal and that Allah placed within Uhud the ability to discern and love and feel. We explained that already. Moving forward. Ali radiallahu anhu clearly stating that we have nothing else but this book, and that is not used to state that the Sunnah is disregarded and Islam is just the Quran, right? As some people wish to say. Obviously, Ali radiallahu anhu is stating the rules which are not found in the Quran from the Sunnah, right? And what's meant by Ali radiallahu anhu saying is that the Quran is the foundation, it's the basis. And there is no second Quran. People ask, is this book 100% this? Or is Bukhari, there's only one what? Quran. There's no second Quran. There's no book like the Quran. Everyone understand that? The Quran is pure. It's by itself. Right? We'll stop here tonight. There are many, many other fawaid that we can take from those hadith and from that chapter. Inshallah, perhaps we'll take a few questions if we have the time. Allah.